it's been on my mind. I wanted to find out if there's a pathway for a non-fiction writer.
I think of course there's hope, and those things that you call random thoughts will be of great interest to a lot of people because you think they're random, but they're not random. A lot of the time they are inspired by things that are happening, around you. I have known, for instance, somebody like Teju Cole started as a blogger, and I think opening or creating your own blog where you can even kind of bung some photos there if you take some that are interesting, but also to tell your stories and those random thoughts that you're talking about. I think that's a wonderful outlet, and then you never know what can happen from there. Not everybody wants to publish a book, but they still want to have an outlet where they can post their thoughts or get feedback from other people. The other option for somebody who writes the form that you write is to, consider sending articles to newspapers, to magazines, to journals.
What advice will you give as regards self-publishing?
Self-publishing, I can see why it's attractive for a lot of people because they think it translates to being empowered. I mean, you're in control of your publication. The problem that I have with self-publishing sometimes is I think you don't benefit from all the support that actually is required in the process of, I'm talking editorial support, aesthetic support with the way the book looks, the choice of fonts, the choice of cover, and stuff like that. So I would kind of advise against it. There's the actual process of submitting your work to a publishing house, getting feedback on it. I think it's part of the rigor that comes with being a writer. Sometimes self-publishing seems to be a bit of an easy way out, and then the book doesn't quite go into like the broad picture of publishing. I don't know if you understand what I mean. When it's part of a stable, your book, it gets the right publicity and the right attention, and the publisher can really push it out there. And I know it can be frustrating when that doesn't happen soon enough. But I will encourage you to keep trying. If you're a writer, you have no business marketing, promoting, and doing all those things. That's not where your talent lies. Why waste your time with that? You focus on the writing and let other people do the work.
What are the core things that shape your experience as a writer?
The books that I read, the people that I associate with, and the conversations that I have the privilege of being part of, I think. Conversation is a two-way street, but a lot of the time I listen to people talk to me. And I always say that if there was ever a gift that I believed Providence had blessed me with, it would be empathy. So I'm one of those people who cry louder than the bereaved. So if you tell me something, I can really be in your shoes, right there where you are, and feel all the emotion. And I think that's what I mean by those conversations. When you get to engage with moments, with occurrences, at a very deep and personal level. I'd say those three things.
I'm not very drawn to fiction writing. I've tried to write fiction, but I find that non-fiction writing comes more easily to me. So narratives, memoirs, personal essays. But I'm very concerned about how viable that is in Nigeria. So what's it like?
I think it's not peculiar to Nigeria. I think it's generally all over the world. A lot of the non-fiction writers must be cursing the John Grishams of the world under their breath. Like, why? Am I not writing too? You know, and they are, and their work is very important. And you do have every once in a while. I think, for instance, I'm trying to think now. We just lost him recently, the physicist who wrote Stephen Hawking, yeah, who wrote incredible books, you know, and that's really interesting nonfiction, yeah. Same thing. I love Richard Dawkins, for instance, who is one of the foremost atheists in, of course, thinkers. And I love his work, and that's nonfiction. Another person whose work I loved, he wrote a book called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. But I'm going to find out who that is. But the book is called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. And he's a psychiatrist, right? And he wrote a lot of what you might call popular psychology, popular psychiatry, helping people to just understand some of the more complex phenomena around psychiatry, psychology. So there is a space for it. My reason for mentioning all those people is I'm trying to think of, okay, successful non-fiction writers, yeah? I think there's a space for it. Unfortunately, fiction, maybe the way it can translate into or kind of be adapted for into other forms is more attractive, you know. And people, of course, don't forget, read a lot of fiction for escapism. So if you want to escape, read fiction. Do you know what I mean? If you're reading non-fiction, you are right inside your problem. You know what I mean? It's the reality. You're not getting away from the reality. But again, that is not to say that there isn't a space for it. So if people are interested enough in your life and your experience, they will buy that book, knowing that it's not escapism, but sometimes it's posterity, sometimes it's history, just trying to get the facts about a particular era. So I would encourage you to keep writing that if that's what you're drawn to and that's what you're good at.
What I want to ask is about writing for commercial writing. We're writing for an audience, we're writing for the media, we're writing for the reaction, not necessarily writing as an art form. As a writer, when do you draw the balance? How do you realize that you're writing what and how you truly feel and not changing your work, not writing for the media, for the acceptance, for the narrative, for the now?
I would like to be able to say that to everybody and anybody, that who cares? But look, the reality is, for every action, there's a reaction. And sometimes there are consequences. Do you understand? And sometimes they're not the consequences that you expect. Sometimes it's not the consequences that you think. And a good example is, there's this TV program. It might be called 13 Reasons Why. Is that the one about the suicide? Right. And I remember Bassi Ikpi, who wrote a piece. So whoever wrote that, the script thought, great, you know, it's kind of fun. Lots of young people are interested. Maybe they've all had some connection to that kind of story. But Bassi Ikpi then wrote a piece about how it was glamorizing suicide. And that may be something that the writer had not thought about. So who knows what's the consequences of such a program? Do you understand? So we like to say, don't censor yourself and write what you like. But I think we do a lot of self-censorship. And I think sometimes that self-censorship is more like self-editing, you know? It's like, okay, if I write this, what might happen? You know, how will it be received? If you feel deeply and you are convinced without a shadow of a doubt that what you're writing has to go out there into the world in the exact way that you've written it, then put it out there. But be ready. for the reaction. You know, I always say that popular thing, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, you know? So people will tell me, oh, I want to just be writing erotica about sex and I'll put it out. I don't care what people say. It's fine. You can do that. And all, yes, but there are some idiotic people out there who will believe that everything you are writing from experience. Do you understand what I mean? And where we don't want to pander to such people, but you know, I always think it's a question of, look, how much do you want to protect yourself as an individual? You know, how much do you care? So some people delude themselves and say they don't care. Then they find out that they do care. And then that's lots of problems on other levels. Because at the end of the day, when all that stuff is happening, you're on your own, alone with your thoughts. And you know, if you're not getting the desired reaction or the backlash, and there's a lot of it and it's too much, it can be very overwhelming, even for a writer. You know, I'm just talking about some of these little realities because people do glamorize a writer's lifestyle too, I think, a lot. You know, by not really considering some of the stuff that you have to go through when you say something. Maybe you've misspoken or you've said something in a way that people didn't understand, you didn't have time to elaborate, and suddenly you are a bad thought leader. You know? So when it's your writing, you actually do have the ability to have more control. So it's best to take your time. Even when you want to put something out there, I have no problems with people writing about sex or anything. If you've read my book, you'll know that. But all I'm saying is, just understand what could come after it and prepare yourself, prepare your mind. You can even tell a few of your family members that, oh, I'm doing this, just so you know. If anybody says this, refer them to me, whatever, you know, just different, putting those little bits of those things in place so that you're also not just all by yourself.
Is there a mix between fiction and non-fiction? Because as I think about it, I don't think I can carry out or write a fiction story from start to finish. I will, so as not to expose the person or the non-fiction story I'm writing, I would like to infuse it with some fiction. Is that possible?
I love how you've drawn your eyeliner. It's very possible, and it's got a name. It's called faction.
Oh.
That's a, or fictional autobiography, if it's one person's story, or fictional biography, or biographical fiction. So it's been done forever. Even when you're writing fiction, a lot of the time it's meant to feel real, right? So just write your story and then change the name now. So really big thank you to every one of you for coming. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I totally loved chatting to you, and we mustn't let the questions end. So if you have other questions, you can reach out to me on my social media platforms, and I wish you the very, very best as you pursue your different careers, and I look forward to reading your names on a book one day.